Hello, welcome to AKS Lytham's new podcast, The Peaks Perspective. And we have the lovely Alex Boothman here with us to talk about her career in finance with Barclays and what International Women's Day means to her.
Hello. Hey, Katie.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Let's start at the beginning then. You came to school here.
I did, yep.
How did you find that?
So I was at Arnold School before AKS was kind of merged together before that was created. And I absolutely loved school. I was definitely very academic. So I really enjoyed my time at Arnold. I remember fondly like the commitment from the teachers. There was a real sense of like actually wanting to make sure that everyone, did the best that they could do. I met some lifelong friends here. I still have a big group of friends who I met at Arnold and that I'm still in touch with very regularly now. So yeah, very many fond memories.
What stuff did you do for A-levels? Because I know you mentioned earlier in your talk with our year 12s that you took further maths and you were the only girl in your further maths class. Did you feel as though that was limiting in a way? Like, did you get along with the other people in your class?
Yeah, so I think for me, so on my A-levels, I did maths, further maths, history, and economics, and general studies. And I think the maths is a subject that tends to be quite male dominated. And it wasn't really, to be honest, until I left school that I really realized that. Because even though I was in a classroom with mostly other men and being taught by mostly men, I think what Arnold did very well and kind of the environment that was created was there wasn't like a differentiation between me and them. We were all just seen as equals, right? So, and that's the environment that we should be in, and that's the kind of culture that should exist, where it doesn't matter what your race, your ethnicity, your gender is. You're there and you're assessed based on your merits, and that was how I felt in those kind of situations.
Yeah, I definitely think we have quite a good atmosphere of meritocracy in the school, where I haven't noticed any difference at all between women and men in the school.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned you wanted to do maths at university.
Yeah.
Do you wish you'd gone back and done maths now and ignored all the stigma around maths?
Yeah, so when I was deciding on what to study at university, I really wanted to do a maths degree because those were the subjects that I enjoyed the most, maths and further maths. But I was told by a friend at the time, that maybe I wasn't good enough to study maths. Now, at the end of the day, it was kind of an off the cuff, flippant comment that individual probably doesn't even remember making, but it had such a profound impact on me because I, as kind of the sort of sensitive young girl that I was, really took that to heart. I think it was one of those like sliding doors, closing doors moments in your life where you could have gone down a completely different track. I mean, ultimately, where I've ended up in my career and the opportunities that I've had and what I've done so far, I don't think I'd want to change that. So, doing economics instead of maths has led me to where I am, and I think there's ultimately a level of gratitude that I have for the path that I'm on now. Every year when it comes to, New Year's resolutions and setting new goals, I'm always like, should I just do a side of desk, maths degree, part-time, just to prove to myself that I could have done it, which I think I could do. I just don't know if I've got the time anymore. That's the challenge. So yeah, ultimately happy I did economics. But if I could wind back the clock, I would have just not taken on board that kind of criticism, that comment from someone and done what I thought was true to me.
I like maths a lot as well. I think it's really interesting. Economics at university, was it quite male dominated, would you say, or quite even split?
I think the course itself was pretty 50-50 with economics. It was straight after the financial crisis, a few years after the financial crisis. So there was quite a lot of interest across the piece. And I think there was a lot more focus on economics as an A-level and kind of encouraging everyone to get more interested in the topic. So that I didn't really notice that. What I did notice was we had something at university called the Investment Society, which is where you get, a fake pool of money and you pretend to like trade in the stock market as part of like a club. And that was very heavily male orientated. And ultimately, that was kind of the thing I wanted to move into ultimately when I was at university and where I am now in my career. And I was a bit put off at university by how male dominated it was. I didn't see a lot of like representation for me in that space. And I think representation is really important because it gives you someone to look up to and someone to inspire to be like in that particular area. But I didn't really have that like moving into my career. Now, luckily, I'm quite a confident person who's pretty, if I want to do something, I usually will do it, apart from that instance we talked about with maths. So I was like, no, I am going to go and do this despite my insecurities, despite the kind of sometimes lack of confidence I would have in certain situations.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. I went to a university like offer holder day on Wednesday and for physics, and I was so shocked at how many boys there were compared to girls. You don't realise it when you're in a small kind of school, but when you go and people say, oh yeah, there is gender gaps in this subject, you don't realise it until you're actually proper in it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's difficult to pinpoint why that is. Like, what makes you interested in physics more than another girl? Like, what is it? Do you know what I mean? That there are certain topics, like subjects like engineering, STEMs, that women just don't tend to move into. And I think it's a difficult one to know whether that's because society discourages that. Is that because women just generally aren't interested? I don't know what it is or why it is the case. Because as you said, you've only just realised that this is a more male-dominated space. So you've got that interest, but then maybe other women don't. So I don't think there's a reason. I don't know what the reason is why, and we could debate that all night. But
Probably cool.
It's an interesting topic.
Let's talk a bit about your role at Barclays and what that entails, and how did you get there?
Yeah. So if you'd have told me at university what my job was going to be now, I wouldn't have even known what that was. And to be very honest, when I was applying for graduate schemes, and ultimately the graduate scheme that I got was in compliance. And when I was applying and reading the job descriptions, I had no idea what the words on the page even meant. I can't remember exactly what it would have said, but you don't know what the difference is between like a risk team or working in treasury or working in IBD, investment banking, versus working in markets. I had no idea what I was applying for. Ultimately, I got the compliance role because I'm quite analytical, and there was always a word that I was told at school. I was very analytical, and I didn't even really know what that meant, to be honest. Figuring that out, but then that was one of the key skills being in compliance, is being able to like look at something, analyze it, look at it from different perspectives, and like really kind of tear something apart, which was something I'm quite good at. And so I got the compliance graduate scheme through applying through university. And then once you're kind of in a big organization, you do these like rotation programs. So I was trying out different areas within compliance. So still kind of doing the same skill set of overseeing something and making sure that the bank complies with the rules that it may need to comply with, which is the key role of a compliance officer. But then I fell in love with the sort of investment banking markets area of the bank, which is where you're kind of overseeing what we call day-to-day trading activities. It was more aligned with kind of my mathsy interest. And also when I was at university, it wasn't on my course specifically, but I used to do university lecture notes for students who couldn't make their own notes. It was like a paid job. You get paid, I think it was like £12.50 an hour. It was great money, and you got to go to a lecture that wasn't yours, so you get free education. And then you were just making notes in the lectures. And one of them was a finance course, and so every week I go along to that, and I was finding that way more interesting than what I was actually studying in my own lectures. And then I started to realize that actually that stuff was what was in the bank in that markets area. And I knew this is the place. It was really fast paced. Yes, it was very male dominated, but that didn't really enter my consciousness at the time. It was more, these people are good at what they do. There is these are so smart people, men and women, and there were women, and there are women in that space. Yeah, it was somewhere that I saw myself like wanting to be and to sort of push myself to the next level. The headline is I fell into it. I didn't know what I was doing. You just figure it out as you go along, and then you kind of hunker down, work hard, and you learn your specialty.
So would you say your job and the people you're surrounded by, is it quite male dominated, or is it even split?
So I'd say within the compliance, so compliance as a profession, I think is quite evenly split these days. Particularly in Barclays, the compliance department, I'd say is very 50-50. Even at quite senior levels, there's now actually a good proportion of women. So there's senior compliance professionals for me to look up to now that I'm in the bank. In the trading business, in the business itself, I would say it's more maybe like 70-30, 70% men. I think there's still quite a lot of a way to go in terms of diversity on like in different aspects, but I don't just think it's a sort of a gender as well.
That's really interesting, actually, that there's also a like diversity difference.
The large corporates they have like diversity and inclusion and equity agendas, and particularly where I work, it's something that they do genuinely believe in and want. They appreciate the different diversity of thought and how that can improve a particular area. But I think historically you've had we have these unconscious biases for wanting to hire people that are similar to us and that we see reflected in ourselves. And I think particularly if you're building like a strong trading desk or a strong team, I think historically it's just been easier for people. When I say easier, I mean people are more likely to feel good about hiring someone who they see as similar to themselves. But there's a lot of training in corporations now, and that's not something that's encouraged at all. You're meant to take time to find diversity of talent, go out to different resource pools. If you were always going to the same universities or always going to the same recruiters, taking the time to go to different places and get different types of candidates. So I've definitely seen a shift in my time there as well.
Do you feel as though there's ever been an instance at your work where you've been treated differently because you're a woman?
I don't think so. And I mentioned it before. I said, I didn't really notice about being the only kind of girl that was doing further maths, because it was more done on meritocracy, and we were kind of given kudos for being good at who we were as a person. And I feel like that has been the same in my work environment as well. On the flip side to that, a lot of banks and a lot of corporations are trying to hit sort of targets around having like a certain percentage of women on boards or a certain percentage of women in senior positions. Exactly. And I actually don't like that. Like, my personal view is I would not want to be given a role or promoted somewhere just because I am a woman. I think that would, I want to be given that kudos because of me and how good I am at my job, as opposed to the other way around. So yeah, I can't say I've had any run-ins or issues where kind of I've been treating differently. I think when you work in an environment where you don't, initially starting out in my career, dealing with kind of the majority of men in my interactions day to day, and sometimes the types of topics that I'm talking about with them are quite confrontational, because I'm there to challenge and review what they're doing. So it's not like you can always go in and kind of build rapport quite easily. I think in those cases, you, as a woman, sometimes how you would approach a situation may be very different to how a man would approach that situation. So there is an element of trying to figure out how you stay authentic to who you are and how I want to handle a situation, whilst also trying to figure out what will work for someone else. And I think a lot of women historically in sort of financy corporate worlds have felt a lot of pressure to be more aggressive and be more assertive and come across and hold this kind of bravado and sort of thing about who they are, and not show weakness, not show vulnerability, not show caring and compassion, or crying at work or whatever that may be. That people frown upon that, but sometimes like that may be who you are, and you need to kind of manage that. And that's been a lot more celebrated, I would say, more recently. Like, I now hold like a leadership position where I'm responsible for a team, and I've been figuring out how to make sure that I show enough of that vulnerability and show my caring side, whilst also making sure that I, keep that level of professionalism and still fit in with kind of the expectations of the role.
In your position as like a leadership role, do you ever feel as though other leaders around you, if you're surrounded by a male group of leaders, do you ever feel like undermined in a sense? Because male leaders can tend to have like quite strong characters.
Yeah, I think I have felt that way.
Yeah.
Do I think they have meant to make me feel that
Probably
way?
not.
No. Yeah, and that's the difference, right? I think I can only talk about myself. As quite a confident person, there are still times where you may look around a room, and I think it's called imposter syndrome, right? Where you think, wow, maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I'm not good enough to be in this position. And I've definitely had moments of that in my career, especially more recently, where I've taken on a much bigger role than, like I was promoted and then got given extra responsibilities, which I feel ready for, but equally, do have moments of doubt. And I think it goes back to that kind of representation piece I said earlier. If you can see other women, other people like you, whatever kind of that maybe race, ethnicity, background, diversity, if you can see other people who are doing it, that kind of gives you that inner confidence to be like, oh, okay, well, if they're doing well, what I'm doing must also be valid. Whereas if you're surrounded by people that are different from you, or people that are different gender, different race, ethnicity, you yourself, I think as human beings, we just maybe like doubt ourselves a little bit more and question our place in that environment. But I think with that, it's just about doing the inner work to, get rid of that inner demon and the inner negative thoughts, and just back yourself and try and find that inner confidence to know that you are worthy and that you do deserve to be there.
Is there any advice you'd give to women who want to get into the finance world or into a specifically male-dominated subject?
First advice would be just do it. Don't let anything hold you back, because I think sometimes as women we can start to question and doubt and wonder if we're good enough to do it. Do we have everything that we need to go and do what we need to? I mean, I don't know the exact statistics, so I'm probably fudging this up, but one of the things that we're told when we're hiring for people is if you've got 10 things on a CV, like qualities on a CV, a woman is only likely to apply for that job if she thinks she's got 8 to 10 of those things. Whereas a man is statistically more likely to apply for the job if he thinks he's got 3 or 4 or something like that. So we as women just tend to hold ourselves a little bit more back. So I would say go out there and do it. And in terms of practical advice on how to, make yourself stand out, I think it's about showing that enthusiasm and creating opportunities for yourself, because the world doesn't just land things on your lap, right? You need to go out there, you need to be proactive, showing that interest and pursuing what you want to get into. So do the work, and hard work does tend to pay off.
Do you have any women or any people who have inspired you in your role as a compliance officer?
So I think I said this earlier in the sessions that we did at school. I think my mum is a big inspiration for me. And as cliche or cheesy as that may sound, what my mum showed me was that hard work and treating people with respect and treating people fairly goes a long way, right? The better the different, whatever career or kind of avenue we go and pursue, we still have to interact with other human beings. And I think the more effort that you can put into making sure that the lives of other people working with you are good, I think that makes a big difference to sort of your overall happiness and sort of joy day to day. And that now in my leadership role, before I was kind of the head of an area, head of a team, I was getting joy out of the work that I did. Whereas now I get joy out of seeing my team do well and seeing them accomplish. That genuinely is what brings me to work every day. So my mum was a big inspiration. And then when I actually moved into compliance, into the bank, I had a number of sort of people that I looked up to. Most of them, I would say, are men. And I think that was because when I first joined, as I said, in my particular area, there wasn't as many senior women. So, there's particular mentors and sort of people that I used to work for where their leadership style, they inspired me to kind of be who I was and to keep driving and keep pushing. There is one sort of person that even today I catch up with and have coffee with her regularly when I'm kind of having a moment where I need some advice or I'm feeling like I've got that imposter syndrome coming on. There's this wonderful lady called Emma who works at the bank. And the reason why I really liked her and I admired her from afar, when I was a graduate, she was a director. She was quite senior within the organisation. And she was just this, she was super glamorous. And, she always looked impeccable. And I'm not a super stylish person. So I was always like, wow, like she just looks great. And but then when you would speak to her, you would have like your unconscious bias, your initial impressions would be that she would be a type of person because of the way that she dressed, but she was totally herself. She was so kind and so sort of willing to spend time with anyone and was really passionate about being like your authentic self. So yeah, Emma is someone that I go back to. And I think that's really important when you start to, figure out your career, is finding people that you can go to for support and inspiration really does make a big difference. Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. My mum is like my icon. I love her so much.
That's great. I love that.
That's all we really have time for today. But thank you for coming in and to school and for talking to our students, to the year 12s and 10s. I sat in one of them and it was great. I had a great time and I'm sure they enjoyed it as much as I did. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, Katie. It's been a pleasure.